Oh, God. He never did have much brains to begin with. Now look at him.
So this movie is going to be remembered for one particular scene. We are talking about the 2017 movie BESETMENT. This one written and directed by Brad Douglas and stars Marlyn Mason and Michael Meyer. You noticed I had to pronounce those names pretty clearly. Anyway, so this is a movie that focuses on this young woman, and she can't catch a break. She's unemployed, she can't get a job, she's kind of at the end of her tether. But she gets an opportunity when this woman phones her out the blue and offers her a position in this kind of hotel 100 or so miles away from where she lives. And she goes there, it seems like a great job. It's a live-in job, so she can kind of get away from her overbearing mother. Good pay, benefits, all those type of things. And there's like a small guest house run by this elderly woman who seems very kind, very kind of like, great boss maybe. She has this son who seems kind of a little bit awkward, but ultimately the service at least seems like he's kind of a kind of a nice, a gentle soul. And she obviously starts this job, and it all seems to be going smoothly, but things take a dark turn. And they go pretty dark, let me tell you. So this movie I would describe as one part Misery, Stephen King's Misery, one part Hostel maybe, and one part granny porn. Oh yes, it goes there. Well, let me specify, there's no nudity in this film, but there's a very kind of suggestive scene, that definitely skirts the line between porn and regular type of movies. So and because that comes out of nowhere, that's obviously the scene I mean, where it's such a kind of a left turn, because the rest of this movie feels like a TV drama, and there are a couple of moments where there is actually a little bit of extreme violence, but it's nothing you haven't kind of seen before. But there's another scene, like I say, so kind of jarring, it's definitely hits you out of nowhere, and it is going to be the if you see this film, obviously the scene that you'll be talking about, because like I said, it is it's quite the scene to remember. Let's talk about a little bit more about what I liked and what I didn't like. Start off with the positives first. First thing I want to talk about is the soundtrack. This is a Stranger Things vibe to the soundtrack here, which I really enjoyed. So a great kind of like 80s synthy score, which I thought was very, very good actually. I do feel that having these kind of like, not just that scene, but there are a couple of like violent scenes as well. They really hit you, because this film is so mundane and kind of by the numbers TV otherwise. It makes those scenes very, very effective, which I thought was, it obviously works in the film's benefit to make it kind of shocking. So the shock value here is very good for when those kind of scenes come in. And I've got to say, Marlyn Mason, who plays the kind of this older kind of woman, she seems genuinely mad when you kind of watch this film. So it's a very kind of interesting film, because you think, how is this plan going to unfold? I mean, this is clearly going to go nowhere, but it kind of you think, man, she is proper mad, because this doesn't kind of feel like it would end well at all for anyone. So I did quite like that. So it doesn't seem to have should things go in a certain way, it's never going to end well. So I can't really say any more without spoiling it. The ending here I also thought was quite strong. It has quite a strong ending. It actually has kind of two endings once the story is wrapped up. And I thought both of them were kind of handled quite well. One of them is surprisingly mature. I thought that was quite good. And the other is kind of a nice little stinger, which I thought kind of was quite kind of fun as well, which was also maybe a little bit, it's a little bit silly maybe, but I thought it was quite fun. Acting wise, a mixed bag. I will say a couple of performances. Like I said, Mason, I thought done a great job here. There's also a couple of smaller characters. There is like a female deputy who I thought was, even she only has like 2 or 3 scenes, but I thought she came across really strong. Would have liked to have seen maybe more of her character. And the judge, I got to say, seems like you are literally watching a real judge. So I thought there were a couple of smaller characters that were good. So, and like I said, it has this kind of little bit of a memorable feel to it because it's such a weird, has some weird turns here. Anyway, let's talk about the negatives. As I've mentioned, there's a couple of good performances. I think the acting as a whole is on the weaker side, especially, I'm sad to say, from the kind of the main sort of female protagonist. I wouldn't say it's terrible acting by any stretch of the imagination, but it feels unsure. She doesn't seem particularly sure of herself and her acting ability. It also bothered me that she applies for this job, and yeah, I mean, obviously there's a whole plot going on, but we literally see her do no work, and she only ever seems to be looked after by this kind of woman. Things happen in this movie, but I think it would have been of benefit to have a couple of scenes where we actually see her do some work. At least you could map the plot into a certain way, because it almost seems like this woman is a surrogate mother, and we see this woman do literally no type of work whatsoever. And considering that was the whole point of her being there, a small, maybe niggly point, but it bothered me a little bit. And outside of those kind of more extreme scenes, like I said, this feels like a TV drama. If you were to take those scenes out and the rest of it in and just kind of like maybe pulled away from some of the other stuff on camera, it would literally feel like a Lifetime movie. It really does. And you know, if you like those sort of films, that's great, but I don't feel they're kind of those films that you forget the second you kind of finish watching it. And if it wasn't for those particular bits, I feel this would be the same way. It's a really weird film because it's not really a horror film, but it has these kind of little kind of spikes in horror every so often in this film that I would still class it as a horror film. But yeah, it's kind of interesting, I got to say, and will surprise you. 1 part Stephen King's Misery, 1 part Hostel, 1 part granny porn. Does that sound like your sort of movie? Check it out. If it is, I'm going to give this film a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look seeing it next time. Bye for now.